Welcome, everyone. I am Glenda Dawson, and this is LD, and we are here on Glenda's Dragon's Den. Glenda's Dragon's Den is coming to you live on the Conscious Awakening Network on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android, iOS, YouTube, and a few other streaming platforms. We like to thank you for following us and um, having us in your big TV, watching us on your computers, and all those nice comments and feedbacks, and of course, emails that people send to us. Thank you very much. And today we have a phenomenal guest, Nicole DuVall. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How are you guys?
Perfect.
Well, she's perfect. I'm still a work in progress.
We're all a work in progress.
Yeah, well, don't tell her that.
Like I said, maybe I should just go get the popcorn.
The Gemini, it's like, which twin has the Tony?
Hey, I'm a Gemini rising, so it's perfect.
And I'm surrounded.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
I'll just let the four of you talk to each other.
So tell us about you, Nicole. Come on.
So where do I start? That's always the loaded question. I am business-wise, I am a transformational and empowerment coach, along with a Reiki healer, a quantum healing hypnosis facilitator, and a whole host of other things as well. I love being able to incorporate the spiritual end of just my essence and just the incredible awakening that I have had over the last 5-6 years with the practical, like, left brain side of me. So I guess that's where the Gemini aspect really does show up with me. I love being able to meld the two together and bring just a different style of coaching, energy healing, whatever you want to label me as, to the table and to my clients. I love being able to, like, make people really think about why they do what they do, or just the different aspects of human nature. Just like, okay, so why do you always do this or that? And just make them stop and really think about how they can shift that perspective, or how ancestral patterning or societal patterning is actually influencing that decision on such an unconscious level. So it's been a really crazy ride to get to where I'm at today. On a more personal level, I am a plant mom. As you can see with my background, this is just a very small portion of my beautiful collection. And I'm also a fur mama to a beautiful Bernese mountain dog who I love to death, and a cat who is a cat. I love him, but he's a cat. He's a good cat, though, like, most of the time.
Do you find you have a niche that gravitates to you in the coaching?
A lot of the people who tend to gravitate towards me do kind of have similar backgrounds as I do. So you're talking people who have a lot of childhood trauma, or patterns with narcissistic people in their lives, that sort of thing. They are the ones that do tend to be more attracted to me and my style of coaching and healing work. And that I do get the occasional like person outside of that niche. So I don't really like to say I'm in like these are the only type of people I will help. I don't like going that route because it does put you in a box. And I think that's the worst thing anybody can do, is to put themselves in a box and not expand themselves and expand just your energy around you and affect everything around you. So
Well, I only ask because in my experience as a coach, I found that once word got out, and I had a similar demographic, which is unusual for a man, um, somewhat in my experience. But nevertheless, once they find out that you can actually facilitate healing in that, this word spreads like wildfire, and
mhm.
more power to you, because that can be a very challenging demographic to work with.
Yeah, and it can be, but what better of a demographic to work with, because they're the people who need it the most. And like, I come from a background of a physically abusive father who was an alcoholic, a mother who dealt with massive depression issues, and also some mental health issue, or some other mental health issues, along with like severely low self-esteem. um, and then, like, I was the epitome of that child that was bullied to no end in school. So there was no getting away from the trauma that was my childhood. I disassociated so bad that even to this day, I have a very, very difficult time remembering really anything about my childhood, because I literally, like, it was that door's closed, locked, gone. And I've been able to pull some memories back, just through doing my own inner healing work over the years. But these type of people, or people like this, they don't even realize they're holding on to all of that trauma. And when you step back and look at it, 99% of the time you are going to find somebody who it's a generational thing. So like my parents, who had the trauma put onto me, who did the trauma to me, they had the trauma done to them, and then like it just keeps going back and growing. So when you can stop and look at it from that perspective, and it's not just my mom did this to me, my dad did this to me, it was ingrained through generations of abuse, of trauma, of this is how you handle things. By being able to see that higher perspective of what's going on in the situation, you can really like help that client to see that as well, and be able to really you help them get to a point of being able to accept what has happened. Maybe not necessarily forgive, but they can accept the fact that, okay, now I understand why my dad was the way he was, or my mom was the way he was, or way she was. And in my experience, like the clients that I've walked through with this, like coming to that acceptance has like quantum leap them in their healing and in their growth and in their ability to just release all that trauma energy that is stored. Now, granted, it's not going to happen it's not going to be completely released overnight or anything like that, but it is definitely one of those things that every time they start having those feelings well back up, or they start reliving one of those experiences in their mind, they can actually flip that switch and be like, wait a minute, okay, I know this happened, but this also happened to my dad, and it's just a repeating pattern. It stops with me.
So, Nicole, what was the epiphany that you allowed yourself to be worthy of healing?
Um, it was I was looking back, I have gone through so many dark night of the souls, it's not even funny. I would say My biggest epiphanies have happened, I would say, around 2012, when I attempted suicide. And I had NDE, and I don't know how, like, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I would not be alive right now. Obviously, there was a higher mission for me to be here. But even at that, that still did not put me on the path of healing. I was still stuck in that trauma for quite a few years after that. And it was in 2017 or so when I finally like broke down, and I had gotten to the point, I had just gotten out of a very emotionally and mentally abusive relationship, and I was like just a broken mess. I did not know what to do, where to go. I just knew something had to change. And I started going to counseling. And at that time, I was still very much indoctrinated into the Catholic religion and that. So I had started going to a Christian-based counseling system or service. And at the time, it was exactly what I needed. But it also challenged me in a lot of ways on my religious beliefs because of a lot of stuff that I didn't agree with to begin with the church. And I remember like my very first visit, the counselor, she was like, are you willing to be put on an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety medication? And I'm like, absolutely not. I want to see if I can heal myself first. And if I'm not making any progress, then I will resort to that. But to start out with, absolutely not. So it was one of those defining moments in my life of, okay, are you going to buckle down and actually do this inner healing work and take a deep dive into these traumas that have been manifesting over and over and over again in your life? Or are you going to just go the route of the sheep and just be medicated for the rest of your life just to numb out?
And so it sounds like you bring to the table the understanding that you have to do your own work.
Absolutely, 100%.
And that gives you the patience with your clients to encourage and empower them, but not enable them, which
Yes.
is the
Yes.
medication, for those who can do it without, that's just straight enablement. And,
Yeah.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Absolutely.
So, great. That answers my question. And tell me about the Etsy part of it.
So I have, I've got two separate businesses. I've got Awaken the Divine You, which is my coaching and energy healing business. And then I've also got my plant-based business, which is for the love of plants. And so the Etsy business for Awaken the Divine You is just kind of getting off the ground. Right now, I am doing Reiki jewelry. So I'm making bracelets, necklaces, mala necklaces, that sort of thing, with different stones and infusing them with healing energies. And the person can request, like, they want a bracelet for helping to release trauma or for amplifying abundance or whatever the case may be. They can specifically request, or they can let me intuitively channel the healing for whatever they need it for. Soon I'm going to be uploading like some different courses and also different meditations and that for people to download and have, and that in their repertoire as well. And the plant one, I love plants. I absolutely love plants. Plants and animals have my heart. And like, if if there was a way I could live out in nature 24/7, 365, I would totally be there. So since I do have to have a roof over my head, I bring the nature into me. And like like you said earlier, behind me is just a very small portion of the plants that I have. And I do grow a lot of my own and offer them for sale as well. And I love being able to work with the energy of the plants. So not only are you getting just a plant when you buy one from me, but you're also getting one that has been infused with energy. And that, like, I've got crystals in a lot of my plants in that too, just to help boost the growth, because people don't realize that, like, animals and plants, like, they love working on an energetic basis with us. And we're just not, like, we're indoctrinated that that's just woo. Like, you don't do that. You don't go just sit and talk to a tree.
Right.
And but
At least the tree doesn't talk back.
Hey, it might.
It does.
It depends on
Well, it communicates with you, but it doesn't talk back.
It doesn't talk back like we're talking.
Yeah.
They have talked back. What are you doing?
Absolutely. There's been many a times my plants have been like, hey, I need this, or I need that, or you forgot about me. When I need water today.
But they never berate you, is what I meant by talking back. It's usually just, you know, a gentle reminder or facilitation thing. But yeah, so, and are you able to, say, change the charge in one of your pieces of jewelry, distance-wise, if the needs of the client change, or if they ask you to add something to it?
Oh, absolutely. Energy is, like, it's universal. So you can work with energy. Like, I can be sitting here and work with a piece of jewelry, or work with a tree in Paris if I wanted to. I mean, the distance and time that's such a 3D concept.
Right.
So
Because, you know, Glenda does, you know, for distance Reiki worldwide as well. And, you know, I was just curious if you had embraced that.
oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's
And
great for your client.
yes. And especially, like, during the lockdown, how did you not do, like, Reiki healings or sessions and that virtually? Like, you had to. You couldn't have people coming in and out of your house because of everything that had gone on and just the restrictions that they were putting on us. And it also, like, it opens up your client base. It allows people from all over the world who resonate with your message to find you. So that, like, the technology that we have nowadays to be able to be, like, even be sitting here and having this conversation is incredible. But then that's just amplified by the fact that with energy, you can work anywhere, anytime. And, like, that client can be sound asleep because it's 5 o'clock your time, you're doing a session on them, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's the only time that worked with your schedule. Or they wanted to do it when their, like, subconscious mind could be more active to receive the healing, because they're too in their head when they're awake, or whatever the case may be. Like, and it works perfectly. It works in just such a divine way that they get what they need no matter what.
Exactly.
And just for the unindoctrinated, you, of course, only work with permission.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, because, you know, people that don't understand will go and run off, and before they go running, screaming into the night, just, you know, because that's one of the tenets of Reiki is you have to have the understanding that this is requested.
Yes.
It's actually one of the tenets for most energy, anything, most healing in general.
And it's a respect thing.
Exactly.
It really is. Like, if you are pushing your energy on somebody who doesn't want it, then, I mean, that doesn't look good on you.
No.
Right. The universe kind of frowns on that.
Exactly.
And it has ways of letting you know.
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm. So, you were talking about that you had that moment back when where you tried to escape,
Hmm.
and then you had some counseling, and you know went to a Christian-based counselor, which at that moment you just needed something,
Yes.
and it opened you up by realizing what you could what was really resonating with you and what wasn't.
Hmm.
So that was the why that person came into your life at that moment.
Yes.
Now, what finally pushed you to go into this, get
So
training and all that?
that, like, that time period of, I would say, about 6 months after my first initial meeting
Mhm.
with that counselor was such a transformational time in my life, not only on the inner healing aspect, but my my world was ripped open with, like, getting in touch with different spiritual beings,
Mhm.
and like I would have different guides coming in, and it was almost like were literally like, finally, now we can do the work. and and I have to laugh about it now, because it was such a time of turmoil for me, because of just everything just stewing, and like still having those voices in my head saying, like, no, this is wrong. If you start working with tarot cards, or you start working with a pendulum, or how are you, like, you're talking to people in your head, like, you're crazy. Like, having all of those thoughts going through my head, and like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do with all this? I've got this part of me saying this, I've got this part of me saying this, what do I believe? And it was just like, you know what, I'm using my own discernment. I'm going to completely
Mhm.
shut out the rest of the world right now, and I'm just going to focus on me and
Mhm.
what I feel is right. And that was really when I started tapping into that intuition, and it started really blossoming within me. And now it is every day, all day long, I am talking to somebody, or talking to one of my inner archetypes, or whatever
Mhm.
you want to use, whatever verbiage you want to use
Right.
to talk about that. It's like, I love using the movie Inside Out. It's a Disney Pixar movie, and it's all about, like, these little beings that live inside this little girl's head, and the whole movie is based on, like, their experience of her life. And like, it's actually been a lot of fun bringing that into um just people's worlds, and getting them to start thinking about, like, your ego is not your enemy. You don't want to kill your ego. Your ego is your personal assistant. It is just following the stories that you have created and that you have told it to follow. It
Mhm.
is not something to kill. It is not something to hate. You're
It is something to reframe and reprogram.
Exactly. Your inner child is not necessarily this wounded, like, wounded animal over in the corner, and you think about, like, a child living on the streets. What about that creative, fun, imaginative, like, giggly child that you were? Where's that child at? Because
Mhm.
if you always talk about the inner child as being that wounded, you're completely missing the other part of it. So when you start talking about the different archetypes that make up who you are, and being able to work with, like, your physical vessel, your emotional, your mental, your spiritual, and bringing all of them into coherence,
Mhm.
that's when you can really start manifesting some really cool stuff in your life, or really start changing stuff and seeing that change happen so quickly in like your physical. And it's all about getting everybody on board, and just breaking away from all of those old patterns and belief systems that unconsciously been following just because that's all you know.
Mm-hmm. Because he got put into that box.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you bought the BS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always like to say to people, just because FedEx brings you a box of manure doesn't mean you have to sign for it.
Exactly. And you don't have to open it either.
Yep.
God, no.
But a lot of people will. And
Yeah.
that's one of those trauma patterns that people that and I see it over and over and over again. They think that just because, like, oh, well, this has been thrown into my life again, this box of you know what has been thrown into my life yet again,
Mm-hmm.
that I have to sit there, open it, play with it, sit in it, like, and like dwell in it,
Mm-hmm.
when all you have to do is say, thanks, been there, done that, learn the lesson, return to sender.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the universe is just waiting for you to stop the cycle.
Yes.
Recognize what you're doing, stop the cycle so you can then evolve.
Make better choices.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I started diving into all of this, and now, mind you, this has been 5 years worth of a lot of deep diving into myself and training and all of that. Like Awaken the Divine You was born in 2020. Yes.
Okay.
End of 2020 is when I finally, like, I had another NDE in July of 2020. I had always known I wasn't going to make it to my 40th birthday.
Okay.
And July of 2020, I had a tree branch fly up from underneath the vehicle that was in front of me and come as like a missile into my windshield. And it was like not even a quarter of an inch of glass kept that tree branch from going through my windshield and hitting me in, like, literally square in the forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of my fears had always been something like hitting me in, like, while I'm driving. So it's like it totally made sense that when this happened, that, like, okay, this was that was when I was supposed to, like, on that timeline, that's when I was supposed to be checking out.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had been doing all of this other work, I shifted timelines
Right.
to continue my work. And it has been like, I know that was one of those, like, defining moments, and that again in my life. And that, because then Awaken the Divine You was born just a few months later, and then the following year I created For the Love of Plants, and that just to be able to merge, like, my love of so many different things into multiple different modalities.
Mm-hmm. Well, plants are carry so much healing energy.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
they do.
people always go back to crystals and
Mhm.
but it's a living thing, although crystals are a living thing. But this is like you could see it blossom and grow, and
Mhm.
when you play with its dirt, you're grounding yourself, you're grounding
Mhm.
the plant. So it's like a complete exchange of energy in a full circle.
Yes,
Is that why
absolutely.
you're digging that 6-foot hole in the backyard?
No, that's for you.
Oh.
That's for you. Okay.
Aw.
Oops, I said it out loud. Yeah.
Delete that. Edit
Whoa,
that part
delete
out.
that. Bleep, 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 bleep.
You're working so hard at that.
I am so trying.
Somehow I think I'm helping.
Yes. Yes, you did provide the energy.
At least the motivation.
Tomato, tomato. Yeah, same difference.
Can you tell it's been a few lifetimes?
So, how that very moment, that's when you decided to then go full blast into training and all that other stuff, or was it coming slowly?
I was already on the path with the training and all of that, but that definitely accelerated it. And a lot of the training that I had been doing beforehand was all for me, but that was kind of that moment of, okay, I know I need to kind of get out in front of people. I need to make myself known. I needed to really work on my throat chakra
Mm-hmm.
to be able to voice my opinions, beliefs, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, and bring this to other people. And so, yeah, that was an scary moment for me because here I am. I'm the wallflower that like nobody remembers at a party, and I'm launching a coaching business. But then or at least that's what was going through my head. But then on the flip side, like everybody was telling me like, oh yeah, that like I could totally see you doing something like this. Like you are in such your element doing this. And I had several people point out to me, like, you have been helping people. You have been a coach pretty much your whole life. Everybody comes up to you and tells you their life story, and you always have like the right advice for them, whether you think you do or not. And I was like, oh yeah, like that does make a lot of sense. And I started thinking back to even my childhood. I would have grown adults telling me all of their problems. And somehow or another, this like little 9, 10-year-old would have some wise advice for this adult with whatever issue that they were having. I was like, okay, this is definitely not my first rodeo being in this type of seat throughout the lifetimes.
So is it fair for me to presume that that child was kind of roped into a more of a codependent enabling type of relationship, whereas now you're very clear on not enabling but empowering?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
how do you discern? Because I think it's really important that people who come from the background that you're successful with right now understand that a lot of where they're getting bogged down and drained is in enablement.
Mhm.
How do you discern the difference between enablement and empowerment in your own life?
It can be a very fine line, and it is something that is going to be a work in progress forever, at least for me. Other people might be better with it, but for me, like I had to start setting very strong boundaries with people in my life, and learning that even if they throw a complete temper tantrum and meltdown about me setting that boundary, I have to stick with it. And that was the first like key piece that I had to learn to break away from that codependent enabling relationship with whoever, and not just like my partner, but family members, friends, coworkers, that sort of thing. And to really start paying attention to other people's behaviors, and don't gloss over and don't justify the red flags that you're getting.
Right.
You do that, and you're gonna find yourself right back in the same position with the next person. And if you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You have to love yourself more than you love everybody else. And I'm not saying that from a narcissistic standpoint or an egotistical standpoint, but you have to put yourself first. You have to put yourself before your kids, before your partner, before your family, because if you are not 100% for yourself, how can you even be 50% for somebody else?
Well, a lot of what I voice with that is remember to take your turn.
Mm-hmm.
So, how cool is it for your clients to hear that they don't have to respond on your schedule as long as they're doing the work? You have times when you have to reaffirm and redirect yourself back into your boundaries and stand tall with them,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't expect them to be perfect either.
Absolutely. And having that grace for not only myself, but also for my clients has been a it sets me apart from a lot of people because I am very flexible with my timing to an extent. Now, if somebody's trying to take advantage of me and constantly rescheduling, constantly having, oh, well, this came up and they're 10 minutes late here, 10 minutes late there, when it becomes a consistent pattern, then that's something that we need to talk about. But if it's the one-off, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to make the appointment today. Like, I'm just really not feeling good, or something happened with the kids, whatever the case may be, no problem. Let's reschedule. And a lot of times it'll wind up being better for my schedule at the end of the day, too. So, like, the universe always works things out. That's being able to lean back and trust that has been amazing because, like, I do have ADHD, and it's one of those things that it's kind of like I'm on the lower end of the spectrum. So I don't come across as having ADHD to a lot of people, but I have to have everything like organized and it has to be certain ways. And that type of stuff. Otherwise, things feel chaotic to me. And that is one of those it's a trauma response, and I do recognize that, and it's something that I am still working on. But being able to learn that leaning back and trusting in timing, trusting in the universe, trusting that the universe is going to provide for me in whatever way that I need, that has been huge on being able to really have that grace and have that acceptance of somebody needing to reschedule or whatever the case may be.
And it's so important for a client to have a professional who understands what that is because they've lived it, as opposed to saying, "Oh, no, you're not going to get away with that. I'm not accepting that."
Yeah.
Which I've seen a lot of people in the business that coach from ego pull, and it's wounded a lot of clients.
Oh, absolutely. And when you as a professional are wounding clients, that's just a whole nother ball game that you're playing right there, because all you're doing is you're not only creating more trauma for that person, but you're also reinstilling all the trauma that they've been through, saying you're not worth my time.
Right.
And that, oh yeah.
Now, one of the challenges in the demographic that you're drawn to is burnout. And how do you keep yourself from experiencing burnout?
Oh, I experience it too. But I know when, like, it's taken, again, this has been a progress, which, and I'm not asking my clients to be 100% right away. It's a gradual change that you have to make in starting to notice and recognize in your body on when you are starting to get more tired, when you are saying yes too many times, when you should be saying no, and like you really don't want to go to that extra party, or you don't want to talk on the phone for 2 hours to your mom, or whatever the case may be. Like, you have to start working on that self-care. And the more you work on that self-care, the better you're going to get with your boundaries, the better you're going to get with recognizing when you are starting to go down that path towards burnout. And I highly recommend everybody, like, check out your human design, because I found out that I am a projector in the human design world, and it made so much sense as to why I can't function like 80% of the rest of the people out there and just go, 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 go. That's not how my energy system works. And when you know how your energy system works, and at least have a baseline idea of that, then you can be more proactive on recognizing your signs and symptoms of leading towards burnout, of leading towards exhaustion, or whatever the case may be.
Do you see any correlation to attaching to outcome with burnout?
Yes, because you're always trying to get to that end point.
Mhm.
And sometimes there isn't an end point. It's a continual process. And that's one of the big reasons why I there is no like it's either black or white, or it's either you have to be 100% by X date or whatever.
Mhm.
This stuff is all, life is a work in progress until the day we die. So to ask somebody to be at your expectations or even at their own expectations by a certain date, no,
Or
no.
yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the fluidity of goal setting, you work with the clients need sometimes to reset goals, to adjust goals. It's
Absolutely.
pretty much client driven.
Yes. Client driven. It is like I will push my clients, like,
Mhm.
try to do this, try to go a little bit further. If you get to this point, go the next step. Like, always, you got to push just a little bit to get them outside of that comfort zone. But you don't want to push them so far that they're sitting there overwhelmed and just say, you know what, screw it, I'm done.
Well, you have that intuitive piece as well, where you can sense, just how much you can ask them to, try and negotiate with them to get at least a piece of the goal. Or
Mhm.
so, that's, to me, that's really key for what you're doing, is that intuitive piece that a lot of coaches don't bring to it.
Absolutely. And in my like my 6-month mentorship that I do a like an evaluation at 3 months. And we kind of see where we set our goals for what we would like to see for the 3 month and the 6 month. And then we also have the micro goals and that. But when we get to that 3 month mark, we sit there and discuss what worked, what didn't work, how do they want to do things different, and just feedback on both sides, so that way that person can get to where they want to be faster than the pace that we were going. If there's something in just, and a lot of times it's something so simple that we can just tweak, and it's just like you literally see that little tiny that dial move just a little bit, and then they shoot out.
Mhm.
And like they grow leaps and bounds, like literally overnight they're having like these massive epiphanies. And it's so cool to have that type of relationship with a person, and for them to trust me to, like,
Mhm.
I got you, I'm right here, I'm holding your hands as you're going through this. And what do you need from me, what support do you need, and really working at their pace with that little nudge, and just trying to get them out of the box just a little bit more, open it up just a little bit more until they're fully out of the box, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So if I understand you correctly, you don't take it personally if they don't meet the goal. You work with them so that they can understand where the challenges were,
Yep.
and then you reset a goal that's more adaptive to that need.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you set firm, hard goals for somebody, 99% of the time, especially if you're working with somebody who has any type of trauma response, like, if they're not making the progress they think they should be making, especially if you're saying, okay, by this date, you have to be at,
Mhm.
I'll just use exercise for an example. Like, in a month, you need to be able to do 100 sit ups. If you can't do 100 sit ups in a month, you're a failure. No. You tell me something like that, and or even not just using like you're a failure. It just, you're supposed to be able to do 100 sit-ups in a month. You turn around and tell me that on day 1 or even on day 5, I'm going to say peace out. I'm done. Like, why bother trying, because I probably won't be able to hit it anyways even if I did try. And it's your mind, especially somebody with the trauma responses and that unhealed aspect, like, you're immediately going to be associating this experience with some other failed experience that you've had in your past. So it immediately, in like, you don't want to even start, because you, in your mind, you failed at the time in second grade where you couldn't build a gingerbread house, and you failed in 10th grade when you got third place at the science fair instead of first place like you wanted. And like your brain does weird things on connecting so many like obscure times in your past of where you have in this instance failed when you've tried to accomplish something, that you are immediately going to be like, why bother starting? This is just a waste of my money, waste of my time. I'm never going to get there.
And
But
a
if
lot of
you,
that is just dogma and programming that someone
oh
else has put
yeah,
on you.
yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100%. And a lot of abandonment issues that people have can even relate back to their first day of kindergarten, where mom walks away and leaves them at school. And like looking back at it, is like, why was that such a big deal? But for you at that age, you were being left for good.
Particularly if you haven't been prepared for that.
Exactly. So like our brains, and that's one of the reasons why I love so much of working with like the inner archetypes, and that because you can pull those aspects of you into the picture and actually work on healing that particular part of you, and like essentially like disconnecting and deleting all of those old files, all those old stories that you've been following. And then it's like, okay, ego, keeper of beliefs, like follow this. This is the new program to follow going forward. And ego, bring me proof that this is in place now. And it's almost immediate that you start seeing the shifts in your physical world, or even just like how you're thinking. So it's really cool, especially when like you get that client to come back and be like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, we're sitting here going through this, and I'm like this is kind of weird, but you know, your voice was in my head all week long with that shift. And sure enough, like I was able to like this fight happened between me and my spouse, and I was able to look at it from this different angle that we just worked on, and like we actually were able to come to a completely different resolution, whereas it would have been a week-long fight. So being able to see that happen over and over and over again for people is really like, you know, you're doing something right.
So when you get to the point where, because you say this is a work in progress and a lifelong process, which in my understanding is how life is meant to be lived, do you have your modalities that you can go to recharge, that you can go to reset, you know, that if you feel something is challenging you, you have that support system in place as well?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. 100%.
Without me getting into specifics of what it is. And you share that with your clients, right? Because,
Yes.
you know, that takes the pressure off of them to have to get it on their own.
Absolutely. And I'll always share like my modalities and the way I do things. And I always share it with that caveat. Like, this is how I do it. If it works for you, great. If you want to modify it, great. Like, and if something else works for you, let me know. So that way I have that in my tool bag, or I might be able to try it and be like, oh my gosh, this works so much better too. You know, and like, it's not just I'm the teacher, they're the student. It is a symbiotic relationship between myself and my clients, and any new information or new knowledge that I'm able to integrate within myself, I want to pass along. I don't want to hold that in and be like this old miser of all of this knowledge, but I'm not going to share it with anybody. Like, I want like everything in my head out into the world.
Yes, and it sounds like your clients really respect the fact that you share your experiences, so they could also feel like they're not the only ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that it goes a long way to building that trust and that too, especially when you're dealing with people who have a lot of the abuse, especially whether it is from relationships or even down to like alcoholism and being raped, that sort of thing. Like knowing that somebody is like they understand it it really does go a long way. And I really feel like I had to go through so much in my life so I can have such a broad spectrum of knowledge to help people.
And experience outweighs everything else. So I know that with my clients, they pay attention when I say, I know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
This is how I got there. So,
and this is how I got out of it.
Right.
Or this is how I
did it.
Took the steps to heal myself.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And, it's like you said, you both said, lifelong, right? It's always changing, evolving, and you just keep trying different things.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's even one of those things that you have to work with the client on, because everybody is so like point A to point B or point A to point Z, like, and they don't understand that it's not like this is a fluid process. Like we're not going to go from A, B, C, D all the way to Z. Z is when you're dead. You're going to go A, N, D, Z, like you're going to, well, not Z, but you're going to go back and forth on throughout your whole life on different things.
Right.
And it's always going to be a journey, and it's always going to be, how can I stretch? How can I grow from a soul perspective? Because that's what we're here to do. Like our soul is here to grow and to learn and to experience. And when you can really just step into and just kind of keep that in the back of your mind and have that higher perspective of just life in general, it makes it so much easier. It really does.
Well, I'm not saying one should invite disease, but sometimes if disease happen, those near-death experiences can be quite transformative in themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
there was a reason I said it, whether I realized it at the time or not.
Well, it's wonderful you bring so much to the table. We have about 5 minutes left. You have a Facebook page or 2 Facebook pages, correct?
Yes, correct. Awaken the Divine You is my business page for my coaching and also the healing. And then For the Love of Plants STL is my plant business page. And on the plant business page, I do a lot of different like not just posting the plants that I take care of, but just educational stuff about plants. I'm really big on like planting native species to help our environment, to help Mama Gaia regenerate after just the massive amounts of decimation that we've done over the centuries. And that so I do share a lot of tips and tools and that there as well. Awaken the Divine You will find every Monday I do a motivational or a Mindset Monday post where it's just trying to help people think outside of the box on different subjects and that, and any courses or classes that I'm launching, that sort of thing will be found on Awaken the Divine You as well.
Okay.
And where does the inspiration for that come from?
It comes from different places. A lot of times it's just downloads that I get. And like on Friday, I'm hosting a masterclass learning about your inner archetypes and that. So the whole class is going to be going through different inner archetypes and helping people to like tap into meeting that inner archetype that they have. And because we all have different ones, but at the at the end of the day, they're all very similar as well. So we're going to touch on the broad spectrum of the basic ones essentially, and teaching people how to work with them.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what you thought this was going to be when we started, but is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to bring out?
I don't think so. Like, we've covered a lot tonight, and we've gone a lot of places that I didn't realize that we were going to go, but it's been all perfect. It really has.
And what's your preferred method of contact if somebody is interested in getting more information and reaching out to you?
Touch base with me on either Facebook through either one of my accounts, or even on Instagram. You can message me there. I'm very, very responsive, and that to all of my social media.
And there's the Instagram link, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Perfect.
Like we planned this. And no, we technically didn't, but we do try to be adaptive. Well, I'll tell you, I've enjoyed this past hour and hearing about your journey. And, I just have one question. Are you fairly focused on one gender over the other, or do you work with both genders?
I am open to working with both genders. Typically, my clientele winds up being female, and a lot of that does have to do with the fact that the feminines are awakening at a faster rate than the masculines, and that at this point in time. But I know a lot of masculines who are on their healing journey and are putting in a lot of work and that on their end too. So I am not opposed to working with both genders, or whatever you consider yourself.
So you can be fluid if this resonates with you, and you'll respond to people that reach out to you on a authentic basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's important to know.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. I'm done.
And
I knew I should have gotten the popcorn.
It's been an honor being on here with you guys. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. And it's been, I can't believe the hour's up already.
Well, stick around, because we'll debrief afterwards. But honey, do you have closing remarks?
I'd like to say thank you because, although we do pretty much a lot of the same things, I appreciate the fresh thought that you bring into it. And, it's very important to hear the same, even if it's the same type of job or same type of modalities in different ways, because people get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand that this healing happens in so many different levels, in so many different ways. So I thank you for that.
And I just want to say that the universe wants you to evolve and wants you to heal. So if something resonates with you in this program, please reach out and claim your healing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to our audience. We'll see you next week, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We love you. Bless you. Have a great rest of the